Welcome, everyone, to the Marvel Snapcast. As you can see again, I'm in the driver's seat, and I pressed the record button this time. This episode, we are going to be talking about a new card this week, Ghost, a new location, the Quantum Realm, and maybe series drops. But first, let me introduce our guests. Of course, Loot Muncher is here. Ken has baby stuff, little baby Zelda, taking his time away. But we do have Default Dan.
What's up, guys?
JeeseJames.
Hello.
And Eggs for Sale. What's going on, guys? How's everybody doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
That was a great
do the
turn.
shares. Thanks. I was sitting there laughing at myself. It was pretty embarrassing.
So thank you so much for joining us, guys. Of course, you can catch all of these wonderful content creators this weekend on Kawatech's Twitch channel. We're going to be having the Creator Clash in New York on Saturday. I'm going to get the date right. The 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. It is going to be streamed live on his channel, so go check that out. First things first this week. Anybody buy the new card?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does anybody regret buying the new card? Of course, we're talking about Ghost.
A little bit.
It's a shiny card. Like this is so much a boy. You made this card look good, and I wanted to get it. And something we discussed last week with Nikki and Johnny from Second Dinner, I think, was on the tip of everyone's tongue with this card. Is did it change priority mid turn? And of course, it did not. And I think that did draw some people in who were not privy. How'd you guys feel grabbing Ghost?
Yeah, I know from my side, it's definitely one of those things where she looks good on paper because you think of the Shang-Chi's, you think of those cards, you're like, all right, well, I want to make sure that they flip first so I can get as much in as I can. But I don't know. I just don't feel like it's made that big of a change that you would have kind of expected with it.
Yeah.
I just don't see enough utility outside of hazmat. And it's not viable with Galactus unless you're playing it after you've already played Galactus. So that requires a lot more ramp to make that happen prior to actually needing it. It's just there's a lot of moving pieces to make it work with decks where you actually require losing priority. So I don't know what it needs. And I also feel like the fact that it's with I didn't know it was 1/2. Honestly, wasn't really paying attention to the power of the card or the cost. Just feels like it being within Killmonger range doesn't feel great either. So
yeah, there's a lot of Bayro out there right now. That's definitely Death Wave is making a comeback. It feels like so that feels bad.
Yeah, I feel like the only deck that it kind of feels like it could shine in is the Shuri deck. But even with that, like Cosmo, so like if you're planning on, okay, I want Ghosts so that we can reveal last, so we don't run into a Shang-Chi or something like that. You just run into somebody who throws down a Cosmo to stop your Zola or stop your Taskmaster or something like that, and you just doesn't feel great.
At that point, it just feels better to just keep running the Sunspot or an Armor or something. I tried it a bit in a Galactus deck. I thought maybe Galactus Valkyrie, but like Eggs was saying, you need a lot of ramp. And I ran all 3 ramp cards with this. I ran Psylocke, I ran Wave, I ran Electro, and they like on ladder, I was printing cubes for a hot minute. I don't know how much of that was from Ghost. That Galactus deck was one of the 2 that brought me to Infinite anyways, and I made a small change with Valkyrie and Ghost, and like it probably helped once or twice with the whole priority thing. But not only do you need the ramp, you specifically need Wave into Galactus on 4, and you need to drop Ghost on 5, and it's too much of a setup. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
I think there could be cards down the road that this maybe shines with, but for now, I guess it's a pass. It's a great looking card, like I said. It's fine, but I don't think it's spend 6,000 tokens fine. I think this is wait for a drop, and I could see this dropping in 2 months easy. So
Yeah, she looks a lot of fun, but I think just the decks that get the most benefit out of her right now have no problem giving up that priority, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think it's great that she's in the game. I'm excited for what synergies might come out, right? I mean, we're a different card, but a card in the future is going to be coming out that's going to make Black Bolt better, right? So
Right.
we might see cards come out later on that interact with Ghost in a really cool way. There is one spicy sauce that I've been hearing around, and I haven't gotten it. Well, I don't have Ghost, and I haven't seen anybody test it yet.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Viper,
Yeah.
right? Forcing it over to your opponent instead.
Yeah.
And now they have to deal with this completely different mechanic in the game, and they will never have pride.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I haven't seen it perform out, but
I think on
sounds
paper, I'd want Sentry as a backup for that. So that you're not only because I would actually love it if we had more targets for Viper, right? Like right now, if you take Ghost out of the picture, we've got what, maybe an Electro and a Hood and
a Maw. Maw would be okay too.
Maw. So okay, yeah, there's definitely targets. I'm so adverse to Maw in general. It's so hard to get out in time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's definitely a turn 3 play with Viper.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's some stuff down the road I think Ghost will probably end up doing, but for now, I think our recommendation is probably just pass. Just pass. Save for stature, save for Kane, some of the good stuff. On the bright side, though, this week we saw a new location that honestly pretty damn fun. Quantum Tunnel, Lockjaw the location. When you play a card here, swap it with a card in your deck. First things first, did anybody find this location bugged for them at any point?
Yes.
Where like none of your on reveals were happening and it was just like very quickly swapping cards?
Well, wow, I just choked on my own spit. Excuse me. I don't think I experienced that specifically. Well, the first game I played with this, I played Jubilee into Leech. So I leeched them. And then the Jubilee played Leech. The Jubilee swapped for another Jubilee because I had gotten it from Triskelion. And then that Jubilee pulled the other Jubilee. So it was the worst experience of my life. I was very upset by it. But I don't know if it's bugged. And I know that a lot of people have been saying that some other cards have the same interaction. But my hand got leeched and I put cards into the Quantum Tunnel. And they came back into my hand with their abilities again.
That I think is something that does work. I'm pretty sure I've heard that happening with Lockjaw before. So I guess that's intended, or that's just something that's never been fixed.
Doesn't sound intended to me, honestly. That sounds extremely fucking broken. But yeah. So that's something that I found really weird because I was seeing a lot of people running Leech right now. So I just pop the card into the washing machine and it comes out clean again. Like that's pretty much it.
I did see on Facebook there was a few people that have put up screenshots where they said they threw something in there and nothing came back, even though they had cards in their deck. Hasn't happened to me yet, but I've seen a couple people posting about that.
Interesting.
So,
I wonder if maybe
if
this was like an early, as it was released, there were maybe a few issues that they can just hot fix now that they have that ability.
I did see a lot of people, and I don't know why they were doing this, but they were like throwing Lockjaw into that location
just to see what happens.
And so like I'm thinking maybe they thought like you throw something in and Lockjaw triggers and then it triggers or something, but it's like they don't. You get one or the other.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I spent hours on end trying to get 2 Lockjaws in one location before and just wanted to see what would happen when you played on them.
Yeah.
Nothing happens. The card goes in, a new card comes out, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
So, but nothing.
I think my favorite interaction. Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
I think my favorite interaction with Quantum Tunnel that I've been playing is Professor X. That's my favorite card that I've been playing with because I'll just throw something out there, Professor X, like on 2 or 3, and just lock down the lane to stop them from playing it.
So it locks down. It doesn't go back in.
Yeah, no, it locks down.
Okay.
No. Yeah, I've been running Thanos a good bit, the Thanos Lockjaw, whatever type decks, and I like doing that with Reality Stone. So like I'll get one or two things in there, and I'll throw Reality Stone and just turn it off. Like, nope, you don't get good cards.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Scarlet Witch as well to do that.
Yeah, it's fun to play a Galactus deck and just gamble. Throw one card down and just hope Galactus pops out on turn 1. Just ruins everybody's fun. But I mean, otherwise, it seems like a pretty safe and decent location. Nothing like. I like when we get locations that aren't detrimental to one player or both players. Yeah. It's sort of just like, hey, here's a little bit of RNG fun. Have at it. So
yeah,
that's nice.
I like this one being featured. I mean, I know that the new ones always get featured, but I've thought a bit for the lower collection guys, and I know a guy who like really wants to play Lockjaw and has that deck built, right? Just missing the Lockjaw slot. You can kind of play that this 48 hours, right? You can play around at lower collection levels and pretend like you got Lockjaw and decide, is this the kind of deck that you enjoy to pilot?
Yeah, I'm curious what'll happen after it's not featured. So right now it's featured, so a lot of people are playing decks, right? We have like 1 or 2 1-drops, and you just have a ton of big stuff. So you're more guaranteed to hit those. But I'm really curious once this becomes just a random normal location, like how that's going to affect games when you're playing. Think of like Death Wave and stuff like that, where you just have a decent curve and you're throwing cards in there and you're not getting those big fatties, 6 drops, 5 drops. You're just getting, a random Killmonger or whatever popping up.
Does this maybe push people to play Lockjaw more? Just getting a little taste of what he can do?
Potentially.
And there's no way to stop him because Lockjaw's not ongoing, right?
True.
So
just a trigger, yeah. On top of that, we've got some very recent news as of a few hours ago in the Discord and now on Twitter. We've got some series drops happening. Honestly, I heard there were series drops. I barely even looked at what cards are dropping where. So this is kind of news for me. So we're seeing Helicarrier, Agent Coulson, and Maria Hill go from Series 4 to Series 3. Makes sense. It was kind of odd that they hadn't already dropped, honestly, but I guess I get it. And then Silver Surfer, Darkhawk, I can't believe this one, Null, and Sentry, all dropping to Series 4.
I'm shocked by Null. Like, I was genuinely shocked by that. Of all the cards that are in Series 5, I liked the rarity of it because it was just surprising for a lot of people to see it come out of a Galactus deck because not a lot of people had him, and now that kind of value falls away. But
yeah, I'm curious. Like, to me, I was surprised at how quick the next series drop's being announced. Again, I don't know. I don't think we have a date yet on the exact date when it's happening. It just says next patch. But I was a little surprised at how fast it went. And then I'm curious how they pick these cards. If they're looking at like the data to say like, okay, let's look at Null. How many people are buying Null? And maybe there's not a lot of people actually buying Null. And so they're like, let's just drop that one. Right.
Well, this is also, is this just the monthly cards?
It's December. The cards going from 5 to 4. That's all the December cards.
And everything 4 to 3 is November, right?
Oh, they are? But they're not going to move Thanos and they're not going to move Galactus.
Right. But those were sort of additional cards.
This seems like because, Agent Coulson and Helicarrier and Marie Hill, they came out in the first batch.
Right.
When the first drop. But then this is December, so it will be the Series 5 cards to 4. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep that cadence. But that is, all 4 of those cards are the cards that came out in December. So it'll be interesting next month if we then see the same thing with January.
So all of the Savage Land cards drop in April, apparently, maybe.
Does that mean we'll see the Series 4, like eventually see these 4 that are going to Series 4 drop to Series 3? Is that what is expected?
I'm assuming. I'm assuming it will be next month or the month after.
I would say
depends on
weird.
In that regard, I don't think we see Null drop to 3, right? In the same way that we're seeing only 3 cards drop from 4 to 3. I could see us seeing Surfer, Darkhawk, and Sentry dropping to 4. And maybe Null dropping to 3 and Null staying at 4.
Well, where was we still have cards like Atuma, Bast, M'Baku. right?
I think
Or-
Mbaku
Sure,
dropped,
yeah.
didn't it?
Did
Baku
he drop
dropped
last
3.
time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Orca dropped.
So he went
Shuri
to 3.
dropped,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I know
Which I
Shuri.
think is crazy. Didn't Orca just come out? Like that's why I'm
Well,
confused by this.
Orca
It was
was
supposed to come out.
It was
supposed to.
supposed to come out. Yeah. It was like a bug with him or
Oh.
something, and they didn't
They,
drop him.
they
on
literally
time.
forgot to check the box that said collectible on Orca. So
Yeah, I don't know. This doesn't feel. I get that this is like trying to solve the issue with, like card acquisition, but this isn't the way.
right.
And I think that's my biggest problem with this. I don't. This isn't the solution. I don't like that this is a quick fix because the cards that I was told were supposed to be super rare and like supposed to be a big deal that you've got these extremely rare cards have lost their value. But I don't know. That's just me.
Well, and I'm curious. They mentioned like Thanos and Galactus being the big bad, so they're going to stay in Series 5. I'm waiting for them to announce here's another big bad, right?
Right.
It's probably
Mhm.
Kang, right? It's probably Kang coming out, being one of those. But I mean, I agree with you on that. It's weird that every card goes into Series 5, and I don't like that either because you have
Yeah.
cards like Maria Hill, who should have never been that high up in the cards. She should have came into Series 3 when she was, announced. So
right.
and like Ghost feels that way, right? Ghost feels like maybe Series 4, but realistically, maybe Series 3 is where she should have came in.
Yeah.
Rather than everything starting in 5.
Yeah, I don't really understand that either.
I would have understood Null being announced as like another big bad.
Yeah.
That was exactly where I thought they were going. I saw some good comments, I think, to rebuttal that of just like, well, do you really place such a synergistic card like Null in the same category as a card like Galactus and tell somebody you need to spend 12,000 tokens to get this synergistic combo? Which like I kind of get, but at the same time, yes, maybe you do because of just how powerful they are.
Yeah. I still think people are sleeping on Null. I think Null's way more powerful. I mean, yes, he's very good in a Galactus deck, but like he's still really good when you throw him in other decks that are just about destroying stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
Especially
it's-
with some of the buffs that have come out, like the Wolverine buff or
Yeah.
having Absorbing Man and having something like a second destruction card, be it a Shang-Chi, a Deathlock, anything like.
Yeah, and even a Tuma, just throwing away a 10 power 4 drop.
Yep.
Yeah,
The
there's
only
a
thing he's
deck
good
that
for.
I've been tooling with that runs a Venom, a Tuma, Arnim, and like the regular package of like Black Panther, things like that. And then Null as like the final reveal of this huge card from all of everything that you've destroyed. But it's still like missing something, and I can't really put my finger on
Negative.
it. So
Mr. Negative's what you're missing.
negative, I've tried it with negative too.
Negative
yeah.
Null is real fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, Null is valuable. I think he's a super fun card. I think he's super underrated as well. And I'm happy about that. And the fact that it's dropping to Series 4 kind of bums me out. But maybe we'll be able to see him in some different decks, change the meta up a bit.
I think the wise words of Willow on this podcast continue to ring true. Series 5 is early access.
Yeah.
We are paying for early access to these cards. They're going to be changed. They're going to drop in price.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to feel less special as time goes on. And I think overall, I think you guys are right. It really speaks to the acquisition method and maybe the problems that lay there.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the desire to keep collecting and spending that many tokens on these cards when
It's
a month and a half
the
down the road?
first edition badge, man. It's the first edition badge. That's what it's
Well,
all about.
What I'm chasing, I got to pick up Darkhawk for that. I'm chasing it.
You got to get there fast. I've got Sentry pinned, so I think I'll see him. I think I'll probably finish that collection today.
Yeah.
After
it better be
at least
it better be
looking
cool
some.
enough. It better be cool enough. That's the only thing. Because when I read it in the article a while back, it was like when you click on the card and then inspect it, you'll see the first edition badge. It's like, no. I want to see it on the field. I want it to have some crazy border or something. I don't know.
My
I just
opponent
don't
has
see
to
that
know.
happening. I
Have
just
to
don't
know.
You
see
have
that
to know
happening.
how elite I am. You must
Yes.
know how much money I
The
spent on this game.
the field, they're really particular about what is visible with cards on the field. Like the fact
Yeah.
that we lose energy just to have more visibility on the cards, I think says a
Mhm.
lot. I don't think that's going to happen. There's no like good spot, like underneath energy maybe, but even that, I don't know.
Just give it a crazy glow.
You add
Yeah.
one more number to the card, does it just confuse people who don't understand what it is?
Just an
Just-
additional one.
Just put a giant one over the entire art of the card. Just a one.
Just a huge badge in the center. Uh,
Something I did want to bring up to Eggs, you were talking about this being and not being an answer to card acquisition, and we got confirmation today in the Ask the Devs on Discord. They said that that is still coming, and it's going to come in another month or two. So I think this isn't necessarily a stopgap. I think it's just one part. I think we're seeing this. I think this was always a plan with the tokens to have them drop eventually so more people can get access to them, people that don't want to spend so much money trying to get the 6,000 tokens so they can get every card every week. So I think that'll be an interesting part to have the conversation, because we can't finish the conversation yet until we know what their plans are for the acquisition problem. But we know that, in another month or two, we should have something else.
let me dust cards.
Yes. Dust boosters, dust cards.
Dust the variants.
Let me
Like,
dust
get rid of
all
these
my
pixels.
Dan hips.
Oh my god.
Well,
I got 2
wow.
pixels on
Don't
you
my
say that.
season pass track last night, and I wanted to freaking cry.
Well, there's a lot of problems with dusting cards and stuff, but I mean, they can
Oh,
probably
absolutely,
figure it
yeah.
out. But because if
and
you
I-
go to dust variants, do you never can get that variant again, or you can just dust the variant, then you get it again, then you dust it again, then you get it again, then you dust it again.
Honestly,
Yeah,
some
but
of those
you're
are so
buying-
good to do.
Yeah. But like you're spending money on the game, and that should be like their ultimate goal, right? So if that's what
Maybe you could dust
They're-
variants that you
Well,
didn't
what
purchase.
I'm talking about is if you get them in caches, like if you open Pixel Yondu and you dust them, and
It'll go
then
back in your
10
shop.
caches later you open them again, and then you dust them again.
So
and
now
you
we
just keep
also
getting-
add badges for purchased cards, collector cash cards,
Never
season
dusted.
cash cards.
I mean, they're going to be worth something, right? Like the same way that Hearthstone cards give you a certain amount of dust based on their legendary status. So maybe pixels are like the lowest of the low, like 10 dust for your pixel. Yeah.
We all vote on as a community. We rank all of the pixels, and depending on its rank, it gives us a certain amount of dust.
It's messed up. Poor pixels. I
Some of them are
want-
okay.
I want to know the artist behind this, because they must be like real sad. Like I genuinely want to know.
I tried to compliment Johnny and say that the pixel cards are getting better, and he had a look of sadness on his face. And I hope it's not Johnny, because I felt
You
bad
think
about
it's
that.
Johnny?
I
No,
don't know. I don't know.
Johnny,
It's-
we
it's-
love
they're
you.
they're
Even
probably
if
on
you
the
made
third.
the pixels, we're not
They're probably
mad.
on
We're
the
just
third artist
disappointed.
now. So
They've definitely changed artists from the beginning. There's no question
the
about
first
that.
couple people have already quit. They're like, nobody likes my art. I'm out of here. And they're like, okay, you do the pixels.
Dude, the
Then
number
he's
of people
gone
I've
'cause he
seen on
got the
Twitter
same-
who are like actual pixel artists who go, okay, here's what's wrong with the Marvel Snap pixel cards and the mistakes that somebody new to pixel art makes.
Yeah.
They're making all of these mistakes. So it's
I mean, they've kind of gone out there. If you look at was it Bast pixel art and then Hellcow, like some of them now they're like really exaggerating them, and maybe that's a good thing because it's just a different look and feel. But I don't know, not my style.
Don't-
shitting blood.
Don't get rid of my hell cow. I swear to God. I'm taking that card all the way to gold foil. I don't care. The most beautiful thing.
Oh. Well, there you have it on series drops, and I'm gonna pass it over to Loot here for our topic of the show.
Yeah, so we're going to dive in a little bit. As Valinthyne said earlier, everyone but me, I'll be hosting the tournament with SuperTech and Kawa. But these guys, they're going to be playing in the Creator Clash. this weekend. So we're going to talk a little bit about battle mode and tournaments. So right off the bat, just a few little things. So I'm going to go start with Valinthyne and then default Dan, Eggs, and Jesse. So the main thing I want to talk about is just what you're thinking about the difference for deck building and battle mode versus ladder is, because there's definitely some decks that are better than others, obviously, in the battle mode and ladder. So what's your thoughts on that, Valinthyne?
So yeah, I tried to test this a little bit today. I climbed hardcore with Galactus last week and this week. And I attempted to bring that into battle mode today to kind of like test out, like, all right, there's no shot that Galactus does well here, right? Like I specifically told my chat, I'm telling you what I have for a card or for a deck, because for this tournament, we have open deck lists. We will know what our opponents have in regards to two different decks. Correct me if I'm wrong. We don't know what deck they're playing. We just know they're two decks. Right? So in that regard, like, granted, I had less information than the people I was playing today, but the simple fact of knowing even just an archetype, if you know a singular archetype of what your opponent has, you essentially have like a 3-game lead on your opponent. So that's huge. And I think that there's different ways to attack that. The fact that we also can't have any cards that are in both decks, I think will, be a dead giveaway on first card play. Okay, now I know what you're playing.
Exactly.
Now I know whether or not I have the matchup. I think it's forcing me, like, I have my one good deck. I have this deck that, like, I think I can win with against most archetypes because it just brains power. And then I have what else, right? I'm thinking, like, I need a synergistic, like a multi-synergy deck that can fight. Okay, I need to fight Arrow. I need to fight Cosmo. I need to be able to fight Discard. I need to be able to fight Ongoing and Triggers. And it is both terrifying and so difficult to actually solidify not one but two decks, I think, is the hard part. The finding the second deck that you are comfortable bringing and maybe playing. I don't know if I'm even going to play my second deck, I'll be honest.
I definitely do think that's like a strategy. That's definitely one of the ways that y'all can go, is you have that deck that you feel really, really comfortable with and that you feel like matches up well against most things. But you can also know what that deck doesn't match up well against. And then you can plan your second deck to be the counter to that deck. So if you think your opponent has the deck, like, oh, they have the deck that messes my deck up, they're probably bringing it. Let me switch to the other one. And that's why we kind of chose this format. It's a lot of mind games and stuff that it's going to be of the deck selection. So, and it's also, in my opinion, a little bit better than just having one deck, especially in a tournament where you're not playing so many games, like it's not Swiss or something. You're not playing like 6 rounds. But in a double elimination, 2 losses and you're out. So kind of feels bad if you bring one deck and then just get a bad matchup and you're playing on Reveal Odin and they have Cosmos and Mystique and just shut down all your lanes. Definitely a strategy you can go with there. So default Dan. So a little bit with you can talk a little bit. I know that Jesse's played in a bunch of tournaments. Eggs was in the Snap Clash tournament also with you, but just a little bit about strategy with the tournaments versus the ladder, because there's definitely is a strategy. We were talking about there's definitely cards that are better, not there's definitely strategies that are different in how you play the games out in ladder and tournaments.
Absolutely. So I mean, like Valinthyne was saying, there's different tournaments are going to have different rules. In our particular tournament this next weekend, it is you bring 2 decks and you get to pick your deck going into that matchup. Other matches, I know, Eggs, you played a couple weekends ago where every round you had to play a different deck. Like you had to, unless you lost and you got to play it again. But, I think that's going to be another kind of nuance. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in a little bit, different formats and things like that. But as far as strategy, I mean, I think the biggest thing that people probably don't want to hear, right, is ladder and battle mode is 100% different. sure, you can take a ladder deck, you can take a Shuri deck, a Galactus deck, and bring it into battle mode. But after game one, once they figure out what you're doing, if you know they're on Galactus, then don't like try to mess with their lanes, try to do that kind of stuff. If they're using a Shuri deck, then okay, I need to hold my Shang-Chi until turn 5 or 6. So don't let them bait you with certain cards and things like that. And so I think your strategy changes a lot. And because of that, you're going to see decks that maybe don't look that strong that are very strong in battle mode. And so again, you mentioned it, Luda. We played in the Snap Clash tournament this past weekend. And again, I'm not going to take credit for the deck because I literally just took Coco's deck and brought it to the tournament. And then played against them and a few of these guys. But the biggest thing is if you look at that deck, it was a lot of 3 and 4 drops. It was a lot of people looked at it like, oh, is this a Surfer deck? It's like, no, didn't have Surfer, but it had Polaris. It had Cosmo, Shang-Chi. It just had all the interaction cards. And I was just controlling the board, messing with their strategy, taking down what they're trying to do. And it worked, really well. Got me all the way to the finals. So, it's definitely one of those that it's not all about just getting 30 power in a lane. It's about being able to interact and essentially, try to counteract whatever they're trying to do on their side.
And yeah, that's definitely a good strategy. I think the reason why that deck did so good is because you did have answers. You can play, and it's different than playing it on the ladder. If you play on the ladder, you don't know what you're queuing up against every single round. You don't know what cards are important or what's not. But battle mode, game 2, 3, 4, you know which of your tech cards that you're getting and what's interactions you could have. They have 3, 4, 1 drops or 2 drops. You know that your players can pull stuff over. You know they're playing a bunch of reveals. You can, signal. They can signal what lane they're favoring towards that. You can play the Cosmos. There's definitely a lot of different things. I think that's why that deck did so good in it, and why it's battle mode. Why a deck like that does better in battle mode, because you can figure that out the longer you play the games.
Exactly.
So Egg, I know you've probably watched some tournaments and you've played in a couple. So the different formats, is there a format that sticks out to you? Obviously, you haven't played our format yet. I think our format's pretty good. But there's definitely been different ones. Do you have any preference or any thoughts on the formats that we've seen in tournaments?
Single elimination feels so bad. So bad. So this past weekend, I played on Friday against who was my first game? I can't remember off the top of my head. The Hearthstone Grand Champion guy. Anybody know his name? Can't remember it right now.
Is it Lammy?
Lammy, yeah. So I went into this and I was like, okay, I'm a little intimidated. This guy has years of card game experience on me. On top of that, tournament experience too. And the final game, I was so sure was in my pocket, and I didn't think about Reality Stone, and I did not give myself backup, and I threw it all away. And that was it. There was nothing to do. I was done. Done for the night, done for the entire tournament. I was devastated. I ended stream before it even completed the match because I was on delay, and I came back and I restarted stream without delay, and I was like, sorry guys, I can't keep streaming. I played one more game because I was so upset with myself that the one thing that I couldn't think about, didn't even fathom that it could have been an option, I could have completely played around if I said to myself, I have to, set up an opportunity in a different lane and not worry about Sinister London suddenly disappearing and losing it all. So yeah, it really hurts because that wasn't my best play. And you learn after every single battle mode of a better way to play your deck or a better way to play against different decks, and just being completely done after one game is just demoralizing in general, I think. I really think that double elimination is a good opportunity to come back, whether it's with a different deck or just after seeing your opponent play more games, see what decks they have, and sort of prepare yourself that way. It gives you another opportunity to have that comeback and maybe even win the whole thing. So Yeah, that's the biggest feedback that I have. It just felt really, really bad. And I spent a lot of time, waiting to play my game and then spent time in the match. And as a player, as a player in an invitational, it's painful, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I was curious your opinion on best of 1 and best of 3, because I was in that same tournament, and I know that first round was so stressful because if you lost, you were out, and then if you won, you played for a seed, for the next round, where I really think that it should have been a double elimination. But in the previous tournament, you did best of 3, and this one was best of 1. So it was literally, you make a mistake, you're out of here. How did best of 3 feel compared to best of 1?
So that was a different situation. Because we weren't playing in a bracket. So it wasn't really like I move on or I don't move on. I think that best of 3 is the fairest way, but it does take a long time. So you sort of have to be in for the long haul of a best of 3 if you're really willing for it to be the fairest format available. I feel like I don't know if you guys watched the match against Binks. That was the most frustrating set of games I've ever had to play in my life. I made the mistake of going in with Galactus on the first game, and I made the mistake of not switching my deck on the second time around. That was like an actual mistake. Like I forgot to switch my deck and didn't say, "Hey, stop, I would like to switch my deck." And he just absolutely demolished me. Like I almost just straight up conceded the whole thing because of how bad it was. So that goes to show you that Galactus certainly is not good for battle mode. But I think that there's just sort of this underlying issue that exists after playing in both different types of the fact that I can't change my deck mid battle mode. And I understand both sides of the coin, that you should be forced to play it through the whole thing. But there's also a situation where you're like, I know this person is going to counter me. What's the point of playing the rest of the games? Like there's no way around it. Yeah. So I feel like it's frustrating being in that seat. But on the other side, the person's like, it wouldn't be fair for you to be able to change because you didn't come prepared, So I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't been in the situation where I've been the one that's winning.
It's an interesting thing, and I'm curious. I know Loot, you played Magic as well. I'm not sure if Valinthyne you come from Magic or anything like that, but when we talk about like best of 3, I'm used to hour-long matches from Magic the Gathering, but we also have sideboards, so it's only 15 cards of a 60 card deck. So I don't know what they could do in Snap, maybe like a 3 or 4 card sideboard, but I know that their whole point of this game is to be quick matches and to be in and out. So sideboarding in general is what adds a lot of time to a game, because you're trying to figure out, like, do I bring in Cosmo? Do I bring in, Killmonger and take this card out? But it does help to where you don't ever feel like, okay, this is 1000% one-sided, because I at least have 2 cards I can bring into my deck to try to help me next round. Or
does that really work though? Like,
I don't think it will work in Snap though. Yeah.
In a game,
it doesn't Magic. I don't know about Magic. I don't know about Snap.
You build every card around each other in a good deck. So I guess there are decks where that works, but it feels like you're gonna ruin maybe half your deck by pulling 2 different cards out and in. Right. So I feel like if you're gonna sideboard, you're gonna have to sideboard entire decks. Yeah. And just be swapping those in. But I get what you're saying. I think there's room for that. Absolutely. And I've been in that situation Eggs is talking about, where it's just like, this just feels bad. It's game 2 and I can't beat this deck. So I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. I mean, both of my tournament experiences have been horrible so far. So I'm really anxious going into this weekend. I know it's just for fun, but I also know that I have to play as hard as I can and not play nice, which is sort of what I've been doing in the past, like playing fun decks, not trying to tilt my team, my opponent, stuff like that. But this time I'm like, I actually need to show what I'm made of and not mess around anymore. So I don't know. Please don't hate me, everybody who's out there that I'm going to play against.
So she's bringing Valinthyne again.
Valinthyne, if you lose,
And
Or
there's
if you win, I'm
there's
sorry.
competing, right? We're
Yeah.
streamers first and foremost. We need to be people who are competing now. It's different.
Yeah.
Well, see,
I think everybody knows that I love them, but I also want to kick your ass. So
well, see, that's the unique thing that Creator Clash offers that other tournaments hasn't offered yet. You lose to Valinthyne, you can just pick up a chair and throw it at them in person. So it's
If
fine.
I'm not hit
So-
by at least one chair now, I'm gonna be sad.
so my plan is to just cry.
Okay.
To make you
Oh,
feel
okay.
so bad.
I don't know. My
I'm
mother could
I'm
cry on
gonna
command. I'm pretty
fucking
okay
cry.
with that.
And just
Wow.
see where that goes.
And something something you brought up with change out decks and default, Danny, you were talking about the Magic.
Mhm.
I think it's a little different Magic. I don't know if sideboards would work. I think it would have to be almost like a bigger pool, like 6 cards or something.
Yeah.
For you could actually try to change out the whole strategy. But I hope with feedback and in time, because everything else that that the Snap team, that the second dinner team has done with Snap, they've added stuff and changed stuff with feedback and going on. So one thing I definitely hope they do in battle mode, especially for tournaments, for better tournament organization and stuff, is being able to change rule sets and mess around with stuff like that. So I think having the opportunity to just like click a thing, like you can change decks like in between the individual rounds. I think that would be a fun way to do a tournament. And, it's just not, okay, I picked this deck, so now I'm locked in for 6, 7, 8 games against this other deck. If you could switch, if you had 2 or 3 decks and you could switch in and out. So hopefully that's something they look at. Something they could implement or something. If they are wanting to push competitive, they need to either give more options or really be in the think tank thinking about ways to fix feedback and problems that everyone else has. So the next question, this one's going to be more focused towards you, Jesse. And every time I come to your stream, I feel like you're playing in a tournament. So I feel like you're going to be a real good one to answer this question. So are there any cards, and we've talked about it a little bit, Galactus definitely doesn't seem as strong because the more repetitive that deck gets, the more players can play around it. But are there any cards that stand out to you that are specifically seem extra strong in battle mode or weaker in battle mode?
So yeah, I've definitely played a good handful of like single limb 8 person brackets and closed deck lists on top of that. So in that regard, Dr. Octopus stocks go up. It is really interesting on round 1 to be able to play the Doc Ock, and it might be a dead card. Your opponent might have Vision or Nightcrawler just to really counter your Octopus from there on out, but to get all of that information, to get at typically 4 cards up front, and they've seen one of mine, and Octopus kind of a strange card. He doesn't fit into too many meta decks, so I'm not giving away my archetype necessarily. I think he's been a lot better in battle mode. Obviously, your tech cards are super strong in battle mode when you're going into these tournaments because you don't know what you're coming up against. So being able to just completely annihilate a Wong because you got Cosmo, or having that Shang-Chi move out, definitely strong. They're strong on ladder as well, but I feel like your tech cards obviously are doing really a lot better in battle mode. And I think like specifically on thinking weaker cards for battle mode, it's interesting because like it at that point I kind of want to say like, okay, is it closed deck list or is it open deck list? Because there's so much in the closed format where like Dr. Octopus or like Daredevil giving you information, and it's more information because we're going to carry that information into our next rounds and our next matches. Those kind of go up really well in Octopus, maybe even, not Octopus, in closed, maybe even Morph. I haven't tried Morph yet, but Morph might be really cool to be able to snag that information. Whereas on ladder, that information doesn't matter. We're not playing against each other again unless we end up queuing into each other. So, for instance, in a closed deck list on battle mode, if you're running Shuri and you're not running Zola, there's a good chance that you're going to show the 12 cards, and they're going to figure out you don't have Zola, and now they know the arrow play. Open deck list, you're looking at needing to have both Zola and Taskmaster in there potentially so that your opponent doesn't know the play around. So I actually think that because of the mechanic of even ultimately, if you're doing closed, what you're wanting is that perfect information of the deck list by the end of the final matches before we go into high stakes and everything's 2 cubes. So cards that get you that information, but also I think certain cards kind of become more essential because you have to show that you have different outs. So cards and deck list and combos, I guess specifically combos that are just one way out and you don't have another way to go out. You put Black Panther down, I know you're Zoloing it because you do not have the Taskmaster. I think that becomes a good bit weaker. There are certain combos that become weaker if you don't have alternate paths. But yeah, those are. I've been pretty surprised by information gaining cards. You know, White Queen being another one that's pretty strong, where I can figure out what's in your hand, and more importantly, I can figure out what's in your deck for the remaining rounds coming.
Yeah, and I would kind of add on to that too. Like, there's a couple cards that just stood out in this tournament last weekend. Like Scarlet Witch is one of those cards that I literally never use in ladder. I don't feel like changing a location matters that much when, like GC was saying, like you may not see this person ever again, so it's not a big deal. But when you're in these battle modes, like locations matter so much. And so if you have a really bad location, you have like Necropolis or one of the ones that are like doing minus to your cards and maybe you don't have a lot of big drops, like being able to change that with a Scarlet Witch. Of course, you can have Reality Stone with Thanos and things like that to do some of that. But like I found Scarlet Witch to be like huge in battle mode, along with cards like Polaris. There was a play that I had against I can't remember who I was playing against, but they played their Zabu, and it was, and one of the locations was not throne room, but the space throne. And I played Polaris to pull his Zabu, and I won the location on turn 3 because 5-2. So like there's a lot of these little cards where like they may not shine as much in ladder, but those interactive cards, like GC was saying, those controlling type cards go way up in value when you're in battle mode, because they can play a lot of different, paths when you're using them.
Yeah, and back to Eggs's point about like you get a bad matchup and that just feels so bad out of the single limb to just get bad locations against your deck. Like it wasn't even that my opponent's deck was supposed to counter mine. I just had 5 matches of really bad locations. So I gotta agree, Dan. Like Scarlet Witch seems really good, and maybe even always finding a way to sneak into something like a Doctor Doom, an Ultron, a Nightcrawler, a Vision. Because I mean, if Sanctum comes up, I have Nightcrawler in my deck. You have absolutely no way to get into Sanctum. Like you're saying, turn 3, turn 4, that location's done. Now I just have to pick my other one that I want.
Yeah.
And that's a card that has stood out to me. I haven't played in any tournaments yet, but Vision, that's been a standout card to me, because not only is your opponent trying to figure out where you're going with the card, it's where you're moving with Vision. Me and Valinthyne was playing earlier before this, and I was able to put him into Bar Sinister. So I had 4 visions that he had to worry about where they were going to move around to.
Yes, you did.
And another point to go back to what you were talking about, Jesse, the open deck list versus closed deck list. I do think that's an interesting thing that you've brought up that I didn't really think about. But yeah, if it's a closed deck list and you don't really know what's coming versus the open deck list, it's very important to have, I think, alternate play routes. Because yeah, if you bring a deck that's all about, I'm going to Shiri, Red Skull, Zola, and that is your plan, you can tell that from the deck building, then your opponent is going to very quickly pick up on that. And if they have any tech cards with that, they're obviously going to hold that and go against it. So I think that is a little bit more important, because I've won plenty of games on ladder of doing that exact combo. But if you bring that into a battle mode, into a tournament where your opponent knows that's coming, then it's going to be a little more tricky.
Yeah, and I've been playing ladder with Saron Shuri and I don't run Zola. And there's still times it looks like a Zola play. My opponent has to respect that. They don't know whether or not. But in battle mode, there's a certain point, even at the closed deck list, as you gain the information, there's that certain point where I do know, and I don't have to respect it because you don't have it and you're not going to punish me with it.
Trick plays work once. That's it.
And, yep. And to your point on Vision, Kawa, it was so much fun to play against him in the Snap Clash Invitational, but he had a vision, and I swear every time I played Octopus, that vision came down, so the lane wasn't locked. And there was one round where I turmoiled myself. Is he going to move vision? Is he going to move vision? I went back and I watched his VOD. He didn't even think about it. Never even gave it a second thought.
No.
I feel like everybody overthinks Vision, right? Or it's like when New York comes out and you're like, they could move their Cosmo, or they could think that I'm going to move their Cosmo and I'm not going to play into that lane. But what if they do move their Cosmo? And you're trying to like flip it around and trying to figure it out. That's exactly how it goes, which I love that part of the game. And then you get to be right and you're like, yes, they did move it.
But you can be right in that situation?
Yeah, right.
What?
Not for me.
I mean, And I find it funny when you were talking about like getting information and stuff. One other thing, and it won't really affect us in our tournament, but in the closed deck list, what you can actually do is that game one, even if you've lost, if they're not snapping or you're already locked into like 2 cubes or whatever, go all the way to the end and then retreat on the last round or the last turn, because at this point you get to see as many cards as you can. You're not playing anything, so they're not getting extra information. If you've already kind of given up. But that was one thing in the last tournament. The very last round when I was playing in the finals, I did not do that game one. And then as soon as I like retreated, I was like, why did I do that? He didn't snap. I should have just figured out his deck as we were going through, because, you know, there it was closed and you could switch decks in between rounds and all of that. So that's definitely something in some of these tournaments you may want to do, is get as much information as you can in turn one. Play your Yondus, play your Dr. Octopuses, whatever it is, just to kind of see what they got, and then let them have the one cube.
Yeah, well, see, and that's a very interesting.
I was just going to say,
that was a very interesting thing you're talking about. That was a very interesting thing that you're talking about. Talking about the game that I played with Valinthyne earlier today. I specifically retreated when Loomis hit, because I knew he was running Galactus Death, and I was like, I'm not going to let you. It was like game 2 or 3, and I was like, I'm not going to let you see any more cards in my deck. I'm just going to leave. You have the advantage in this match, so I'm going to leave. And it even came up because when I went into his stream afterwards to say GG, he's like, I didn't know if you had the Odin or not, because the very last game he didn't see Odin, and I specifically did that for a reason. I did. There was a game earlier where I was clearly like, I felt like I was in a good spot. I was like, Odin's the best play here. I'm not going to play Odin because I think I can still win, and he won't know I still have Odin in my deck.
Keeping track of what you don't play is probably one of the most crucial things that you can do. The number of times that I have gone into like a turn, like a game 9, and using the opponent tracker from Untapped, it's just like, I still haven't seen a card. What freaking card have I not seen? Like, it could be Odin, it could be this, it could be that, and like it's usually the one you expect it to be.
No.
But that one time out of 10, it's like, oh, they put a fucking Galactus in this deck, and like for whatever reason, I didn't play this lane, so they won. And like keeping that one secret card is wild and closed. It's nasty.
So I am a little bit interested on the Galactus topic, because Eggs, Val, you guys played a lot of Galactus. I have not played too much Galactus. And I hear you guys both saying like Galactus no for battle mode, but Galactus almost scares me in battle mode, because you throw down wave, I have to assume you've got Galactus, right? I have to respect that you have Galactus. If you're going to snap like you have Galactus, whether you have it or not, I assume you have Galactus. I have to, or I'm just not going to be able to overcome it unless like I'm specifically a Galactus counter, right? So that part of Galactus makes me feel like maybe, especially in open deck lists, like, are there advantages, right? Where, okay, I'm going to build a different wave out. Like my brain first goes to Shuri. Like I wave and then I Shuri instead of Galactus, and now I've baited your arrow out, and I don't have to worry about arrow turn 6.
That's wave into Electro into Galactus to bait out the arrow. Like 100%. That's been brought up in my chat before, and it's just like, yeah, it's like they have arrow. Just play Electro after your wave, and you get the arrow out of the way. That's also why I run Absorbing Man in my Galactus deck, because if you do arrow me, I just play the Absorbing Man over here, and he's just bald Galactus, and we're good. So it's like there are definitely things to think about in that regard, but like once again, the problem becomes how often can you make that work after it works the first time.
You can only be tricky so many times.
Yeah.
Well, and I think Galactus specifically is there's not as many lines. So when Galactus first came out, right, it was like stick them in a death deck, and then you get Galactus if you get Galactus, and if not, you still have, you know, your Carnage, your Bucky. You got big power on the board if you need it. But I feel like the deck has evolved so much with Doc Ock, Hobgoblin, different things like that, to where it's more Galactus centric. And so what you're saying, GC, is like if you don't have interaction cards, yeah, you're out of here. Like Galactus is coming down and he's going to drop a null and a death, and you just can't do anything about it. But I feel like that's where, when we go back to that deck building, right, and the strategy around it, I think when you're building the decks, the best decks for battle mode are going to have Enchantress, Shang-Chi, Cosmo. They're going to have all these control-y cards, because sure, you can throw down Wave. I'm going to throw down Cosmo. If I got him, I got him. If not, I still have Shang-Chi, and hopefully you've got priority wherever you played your Galactus, and I'm going to wait around and destroy whatever you play, you know, on the last turn. So
yeah, that's pretty much how I'm feeling. That control is really the way to go, which is unfortunate because I do not like playing control.
I suck at playing control.
I don't know how to control. Like, I really don't. I would love to just play Galactus or like Sarah and Shuri, but
and
I know that all of us are smarter than that.
Yep.
And I still think your Shuri, Sauron, you know, big decks can work because you have the Zola or you have the Taskmaster. You do have both ways, so you have to predict that correctly. I still think the Thanos decks, I mean, we saw a lot of Thanos decks winning. I even lost to a Thanos deck in the finals, but essentially it's like, I think you have to play your decks properly, but the most important thing, and this is with anything, right? You need to know your deck, and you need to know, like Valinthyne, like I mentioned before the stream, I'm trying your Puffy Jacket deck. I see all your lines, and I've won a couple times where like they thought I was going to play, you know, the Odin or the Shuri, you know, Wong Shuri big card, and instead I Wong Shuri'd play my I don't know, Yellow Jacket, and then play, you know, Red Skull in a different location. So I get 2 locations of big power. Like there's a lot of lines, but the thing is you have to know your deck, because there's going to be those trick plays you can get people with.
100%. Yeah. And that deck in particular, I think perfectly illustrates like, oh, this literally has 7 different routes after turn 4 that you can go in, depending on what you draw.
Yeah.
And like, that is the perfect, a lot of it is counterable in an on reveal sort of way. Like Cosmo and Shang-Chi can absolutely wreck house in there. And even Enchantress, right? It's very vulnerable, but it has the flexibility that you want in a battle mode deck to go down those different roads if something gets wrecked. Like in the end, right, you might just have a Red Skull and a She-Hulk to drop in that sort of instance. Like your Shuri got Cosmo'd, your Wong got turned off, you're still dropping 25 power on the board, right? So like there's a chance. There's always a chance. So like those kind of decks they're hard to build though, and they're hard to like have that much knowledge on. Like I've played hundreds upon hundreds of games with that deck. Like I've refined it from a deck that a viewer gave me, and then like make the little tweaks and then make it my own and play like hundreds of games. Now I can be at that point with it. That secondary deck is where it's just like, okay, but like, what is everybody else playing? How do I counter that? Right. It's the thought of the counter deck, I think is the hardest part here.
Yeah. I think the other thing I'll throw out there, right? So again, I'll give away some secrets. I'm not saying what deck I'm bringing or anything like that. But when we talk about strong cards, I think there's a couple sleepers that people aren't thinking about. And I think those are the cards that create randomness. So what I'm talking about is Agent 13, Coulson. I mean, you mentioned it, GC, with White Queen, but the fact that you can pull cards that are not in your deck list into your deck. So if Coulson gives you a 4-drop and a 5-drop, there's a bunch of really good 5-drops. There's a bunch of really good 4-drops, right? Like we already know that because of Zabu. So like, I think there's also those types of cards when you look at, a battle mode type thing to where every game can be totally different because you're getting these random cards in your hand. Now, it may hurt you if you're not playing the proper deck to support those cards, but even Nick Fury, right? Like throwing Nick Fury on 5 and having 3 different 6-drops to pick from is going to be pretty big because now they don't know. Oh, they may have a Dr. Doom now in their hand. They may have, a Magneto just popped up and is going to move some stuff around because it's not in their list. So I think a few of those cards may actually shine that people just forget about, especially with Coulson. Now, it won't happen for this tournament, but Coulson coming down and the series drop and things like that, people are going to be able to pick up some of these cards. And I think that some of those may actually make a big impact on tournaments because of the fact it's unpredictable, even with open deck lists. So
yeah, I think especially in the open deck list, I think those card generators really have a place to shine. Because at least in the closed deck list, right, like there is some of that randomness there, but we're going to play 3, 4, 5 rounds before you get perfect knowledge of my deck. Whereas, and again, to your point, right, those cards prevent complete perfect knowledge because they're introducing, they're generating their RNG. But when you have the open deck list format and you start off with perfect knowledge, being able to disrupt that immediately is pretty nice. And then all of a sudden, I put Shang-Chi in my other deck, but I generate Shang-Chi in this one, right? That's how we get 2 cards into both decks.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see what everybody's going to submit on their decks. I'm in the same camp as you, Valinthyne. Like, I feel like I know what one of my decks are. The other one, I have no idea. I'll probably just pull a big, strong deck and then decide when I get there if I'm actually going to switch or not. So
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if we're all going to go with just one deck, just bring Bro Zero as the second deck.
You can do it. Everybody build a Galactus deck.
Yeah. That way they have to respect you on turn 1 before they know anything on game 1.
So a little extra spice that I was actually doing in the ladder before the featured location popped up, or hot location. Arrow with Iron Fist is one of my favorite things I've been doing, because people, like, once they like the style of deck I have is very much a deck that would have Arrow in it. And if anyone knows my name, they know that I'm probably going to have Arrow in it. And
you're playing Arrow? Oh my god, I've never seen that card before.
Look, I was playing it before it was cool. You can't give me that. I was playing it way before it was cool. But what's really fun with that is you can actually play around them knowing you're going to play Arrow, because they'll like play into Arrow, but then you Iron Fist it out, and it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. I'm just saying, it's good.
I like that. The
you
trick
Iron Fisted out. Got it.
Yeah, I think that's the funny part is like in one of the rounds with Coco, we hit Triskelion as one of the locations, and all of a sudden it's like, all right, that and District X, right? Like that, like, doesn't matter what you brought. Now you just got these cards, and it's always interesting just to see how much that makes a difference in your matches.
I'm waiting for Saturday finals. It's the last match. Both players have 2 life left. It's we're in the sudden death, and Ego flips first round. Yeah.
Oh
Can
my
we
god.
Can we all agree?
No, I think they said Ego's not in battle mode.
My stream.
Oh, Ego's not in battle mode?
I thought I heard that said there was a couple
true.
Locations not in battle mode.
No, I want to say I got Ego in one of my battle mode games, but I may be just way out there.
So
I feel like that
we're gonna
make
snap on Ego
sense.
though, right?
I promised my stream I would. So I might be the only one, but Ego
Well,
shows
see,
up on Snap.
Maybe
and it's
maybe
the
he
law.
did. Maybe he did show up when it was me and Guest too when we were in battle mode. But I was
Val,
Val,
thinking
you're
that the
gonna
dev
have
said
to win
there
in
was
order to
certain
see
ones.
that through with me. So
It's not up to me.
Yeah.
it's not up to me if I win or not.
It's not my
Well, see,
fault. I just followed the
That's
rules.
what's funny. That's what's funny with this tournament too. If Ego pops up and you snap, you look at your opponent in the face. Are you going to snap? You just start staring.
You better
at
snap. It's the
Oh
rules.
wait, yeah. Hey, sunglasses. Did we land somewhere on sunglasses?
I don't
Maybe?
think that he's banning him. No.
Yeah,
you
I think they're fun. Yeah.
Just
I'm
make sure
gonna
yours
bring
are very
police
reflective,
glasses available.
so we can see your hand off the glasses.
See, I
I
was
have
thinking
this
about
set
the
of
sunglasses
scroll
that
glasses.
have like a straw built into them, and I
Yeah.
Look, you gotta
Drink-
stay hydrated. That's
I can
the most
drink
important
energy
part.
drinks just while. Yeah.
Yes.
Default
yes.
Dan knows this from Magic tournaments. You gotta stay hydrated.
Yeah, you got to bring some snacks. Hydration. Good to go. I
Get
mean,
your
again,
notebook out.
well, it's funny. Like again, coming from Magic and playing for 20 plus years, like I mean, your tournaments are 8 or 9 hours on day one, and then day two are another 8 or 9 hours to see if you can make day three. And so I'm used to a lot of that. Where it's again in these tournaments, it's 2 or 3 hours. Let's get it over and done with. So
I'm calling it now. An hour into the tournament, Valentine's gonna DoorDash some food.
I'll probably just run out and grab something. My
I'll be right
apartment,
back.
the studio I'm renting
My
is in that building, so I'll just leave something upstairs and I'll go pick it up, and microwave it, and bring it back down. Go make some coffee. I'll be back, guys. There's a
Well,
Keurig in there.
I think that's all the questions and everything I had. If anyone else has anything they want to bring up, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think
Well.
that'll do it. All right, that's been the Marvel Snapcast for this week, episode 17. We never land. Do we say the episode numbers? Wait,
We do now.
You do now.
we do now. Hear
at
that,
the
Tech?
end,
We're expecting episode 18. We might have a
Legal.
little something to do. Legal. We might have a little something
That took me a
coming
moment.
from New York.
Yeah.
We may try and do an in-person episode. No guarantees on
Live from New York.
that. Yeah,
It's-
right. Let's just
Episode
cram
18.
18 people into the room for episode 18, and
God.
I'm sure nothing will go wrong there. One like laptop microphone and a webcam, and we'll be good to go.
We'll do it from the karaoke bar.
There we go. Perfect.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. We'll see you again next week. Eggs, GC, Default. Thank you so much, guys. Loot. See you guys later.
Bye.
yo.